side. Bill Stone will say you know,
Yeah, let's comply.
alleviated. This is, and this will be, this is an oversized line that'll be this range. On it, so we can just, you know.
All right, 6 o'clock, so we'll call the regular OVSD board meeting to order. See, we have everybody here, so we won't have any 2440. Take a second to welcome Liz and Israel and Rick. Nice to see you guys. Call the roll, please, Allison.
Sure. Director Martinson?
Here.
Director Curtis?
Curtis?
Yes.
That's me.
Perfect. Director Kentosh?
Here.
Director Berg?
Here.
Director Quillisi?
Here.
Director Ulrich?
Here.
And Chair Stone.
Here. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Listen, do we have any additions or amendments to the agenda? Public concern. Any public with any concerns?
There's a Lynn on there. I don't know if she has any public concerns.
This would be for anything that's not on.
Or anything's not on the agenda? Well, I'm not here to speak up, so. Any public concerns in the room here? Seeing none. Move on to consent items. 6 and 7.
I'll move approval of 6 and 7.
Motion and second. Allison, call roll, please.
Director Martinson?
Yes.
Director Curtis? Director Kentosh?
Yes.
Director Berg?
Yes.
Director Quillisi?
Yes.
Director Ulrich?
Yes.
And Chair Stone.
Yes. Let's move on to item 8,
Okay, so
screen equipment selection.
Bradshaw is going to take this one.
Okay, that'd be me. So want to talk about our fine screen. We're looking to replace our fine screen. It was installed in 1997. It was due for replacement per our replacement schedule in 2017, and it's 27 years old. With the current design of our facility being extended aeration activated sludge, that particular screen had a low capture rate. It's 20 years old and it's wore out, and we've had our share of trouble with it, right? So we weren't trying to kick that can down the road. It kind of was what it was. We were still able to operate it until such time as we got ahead on the TMDL project and the design of the facility and the facilities plan and the chosen design for the plant to meet our new TMDL more stringent limits for total nitrogen. But now it's time for us to kind of take a step back, get a replacement screen in progress. The board's aware that we have HDR on board for design services that was approved by the board in May to actually evaluate the fine screen structure, take a look at some of the screens, and evaluate several screens and see where we land with the screen selection and what's going to do the best job for us with the fine screen structure. Before we move on, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on right now. Well, back in February, the board approved 5 influent valves, which needed to be replaced upstream of the fine screen structure. For a couple of reasons. One, they needed to be replaced because they've been previously identified as leaking, and they're 27 years old as well. The other reason was we needed to have the capability to bypass the fine screen in its entirety when we do the fine screen replacement. So we're changing those valves, and that's actually happening tomorrow morning. So my hat's off to collections and plant crew for coordinating and pulling everything together and working with Rain for Rent, which the board approved in July for Rain for Rent to complete this work. And then Cushman has given us a really good price on actually changing those valves out. They're all set up. They have the expertise. They're on site already. They're going to be changing out, I believe it's five valves on that influent header. It's going to be an early morning start tomorrow. We're hoping to get it all done in one day. We're going to have to hold some flow. We're going to have to put some flow out into the compost area to facilitate that. We have the collection support down there with the gap vacs in case we have it. We're going to have a little bit of leak back from the piping. It's going to have some water in it. And so we want to make sure and have all the resources we need to make sure that we don't have any water go into our drainage system, go down to our plant drain pump station and have any threat whatsoever of influent water going out into the river. So hopefully everything goes well. Like I said, the plant crew did a really good job putting everything together, making a checklist. They're making a list and checking it twice and making sure that they have all their ducks in a row to facilitate changing out these valves. So once we change these valves, then we'll have the capability to effectively bypass the fine screen structure. So that's what's happening tomorrow morning. In May, the board approved HDR for design services of the fine screen structure. That's going to include replacing the fine screen, replacing some conduit, replacing a couple of slide gates we have upstream and downstream, and just taking a hard look and evaluating this structure as a whole. To do any improvements we want to do in that structure while we're in the process of evaluating and changing out the fine screen. So HDR actually evaluated 4 screens, and where they landed was on the Huber wedge wire screen. And I wanted to talk about the Huber wedge wire screen and our fine screen. Our fine screen is a lakeside screen. 2 lakeside screens were evaluated as part of this process. As I mentioned, we've had our share of trouble with lakeside. One of the biggest concerns for me, I'm actually kind of glad on how this played out with having a separate evaluation of 4 different screens. Lakeside doesn't really have a service department, if you will. You have a problem with your screen, and we've had problems with our screen over the years. They will give you a list of subcontractors that are contractual with the manufacturer to work on these screens. And so we had Frost Company out several times to work on our screen. Great people, did great work. A little hard to get them out in a timely manner because they're coming from far away. And they would come out and do stuff for us on our screen and make repairs and whatnot. That definitely wouldn't be my preference. The screen that HDR is recommending, the wedge wire screen, it actually has a pretty high capture rate in comparison to our existing screen. And they also have 21 technicians that are for service here in the United States. They've just completed a manufacturing facility in North Carolina, making screens, making dewatering equipment. I mean, that's what Huber does. I've been out to the Santa Paula plant a couple times and actually seen the wedge wire and the rotary or the what they're calling a belt screen. It's a perforated drum screen. I've seen both them in operation. Huber does a good job at their passivization, their pickling of their stainless steel to prevent corrosion over time. Santa Paula at their wastewater plant have had trouble with H2S. They had a long period of time with high H2S levels because of some other operational and scrubbing problems they were having. They got that resolved. However, looking at these screens, and I've been over there a couple times, I know the folks that work there. These screens are in really good shape still, and they're really happy. They're happy with service. They're happy with parts. They're happy with all the operational information that they get and the response from Huber to services screen. So me, I'm a wastewater guy. I like having resources to take care of things long term. I don't want to get a list and have to go down that list and try to figure out who I'm going to get to have come work on our screen. Huber just happened to be the the screen that HDR evaluated as part of the four screen evaluation, and that's where they landed with this particular screen. You can put 7 MGD through it. It's got 4 millimeter gaps. It's actually much better gap wise than our existing screen. I think it'll do a good job. I think we'll get a great compaction, not compaction, but capture rate. Yeah, question.
Yeah, Director Quillisi had a question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've paid Huber for design services. You named a number of things besides the fine screen.
Huber makes solids dewatering.
Their design services covered more than just the fine screen?
No. I was just mentioning what other things Huber does. Huber makes screening equipment, in-channel screens, rotary drum screens. They make dewatering equipment and things like that. And my point to that is they're pretty focused on their equipment, and the quality of their equipment is just been my experience in talking to others who have this equipment and some of this equipment in place here locally within the Tri-County.
And we ask,
The firm that did the design was HDR.
HDR.
Wasn't
oh,
Huber.
HD, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Huber's the actual manufacturer of the selected screen.
So for Huber, just short of 300,000, the screen material.
That's for the screen in its entirety.
That means does it have fancy edges on it or?
No, the whole screen, completely assembled.
Okay.
Total screen to include control panel and everything else that goes with it.
And then we anticipate then there will be an installation contract? Or does that come from Huber as well?
That'll
Is
be
that already part of the 296,000?
that is not part of the 296,000. 296,000 is solely to purchase a screen because it has a long lead time to get it on site. And what's our approach to installation?
The design complete in early 2025, hopefully January, we'll go out to bid on a construction project. There's related structural work we have to do, a lot of electrical, and then the actual removal of the screen and replacement of the screen. So this is just like we pre-purchased our filters through Parkson because of the long lead time. We're pre-purchasing the screen through Huber because it's about, plus or minus, 9 to 12 months. We're moving closer to 8 to 9 months. So we'll hopefully be either out to bid or have the contract awarded, taking delivery of the screen so they can begin construction and just place it in as quickly as possible.
Okay, so Huber actually builds the equipment
Yes.
and they would maintain it later if necessary?
Yes. There's some stuff
They
that
don't install the equipment.
they do not install.
Director Bird.
Bradshaw, the screen, which is the effluent through the screen? Is it gravity feed or is it pumped through there?
Yeah, it's actually a plant influent where the water first comes in. We're trying to get the rags out.
So there's no pumps required?
Well, the pumps in the headworks that are pumping water up from our 2 wet wells in the headworks actually pump up to the screen, and the water comes through the grit chamber and then goes through the fine screen. So it is pumped.
Any increase in cost of operation with the higher pressure of pushing water through a finer screen?
I don't think so, because just because of the volume that this particular screen can handle, there won't be any restrictions or any subsequent pressure buildup.
I just have a question. Is there some kind of a backwashing? How do you backwash it? Is there like a jet, a nozzle that pushes the stuff out of the holes, or do you have any backwash?
This one, as the rags accumulate, the rake arm comes around, it puts them onto a screw conveyor, and it goes up. We do have washing solenoids that kick on that throws water onto the rags to wash off all the appreciable organic, if you will. Pardon me?
Backside of the screen blows the rags away.
Well, you got your big screen, the water comes through and it catches on the wedge wire, it catches the rags. A rake arm comes around and pushes those rags that were captured onto the conveyor, and the conveyor goes up a tube, and there's washing bars that actually spray and in the rags as they go up. And then the rags go into a compaction zone. And then once they get compacted, they push out the other end and drop into a dumpster to be hauled off to Poland landfill. Yeah, very similar to what we have now.
Curtis.
Bradshaw,
It's a rotary, barrel type screen.
It is a barrel type screen, yes.
Director Byrd.
I'd like to move for approval of 8A, B, and C.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Allison, would you like to call the roll, please?
Martinson. Director Curtis. Director Kentosh.
Yes.
Director Berg.
Yes.
Director Quillisi.
Yes.
Director Ulrich. Chair Stone.
Yes. On to item 9, replacement of information technology equipment, Xerox copy machines 5.
That would be Yan.
So we have 5 copy scan fax throughout the district. There are 4 at the main office, some in the different buildings. We have 1 down at the treatment plant. They were all purchased 7 years ago. They had a life of 6 years. We have kind of extended it due to the fact that they were still functioning okay. They are increasing the maintenance needs and so forth, and PAMs and, different things. And so they are for replacement now, and 1 at the plant and 4 here at the office, 1 in the collection building, 1 in the engineering, and 2 at the front office, 1 in the copy room, and then 1 in the hallway. Everybody uses them for print, scan, fax, and book. It's kind of like it's our main source of printing throughout the district.
Director Byrd.
Again, over a period of time, the reduction in printed communications, do you see a need? Will these last longer, these new ones?
They're actually about half the price of the old ones, and so I doubt it. No, and I don't think that there's really has been any reduction in print with all the digitalness that is going on. Yeah, I don't think that overall that you see any reduction in printing.
For a small business, I noticed the cost of a box of paper used to be $20-something. Now it's $80 or $90.
So, yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Just curious, having burned up a few expensive copy machines in my career. What is the number, the counter, please?
I actually don't know that because that goes directly to them, but I could get you those numbers. I mean, but they're in, they may have hit $1 million. I mean,
Individual machines? Value out of it.
Director Curtis.
I move for approval of the Xerox copiers A and B.
Go ahead. Second.
One question before we. There's also a maintenance part of this. Is that the same way we do it now?
It's the same way we do it now, except that the price per print has again gone down. So it's a better page out, in both color and black and white. So.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Words. All right. Other questions? The roll, please.
Director Martinson.
Hey.
Director Curtis.
Yes.
Director Kentosh.
Yes.
Berg.
Yes.
Quillisi.
Yes.
Director Ulrich. Chair Stone.
Yes. Item 10, purchase of portable diesel pump, budget adjustment 2025 dash.
Hey, this is, we're looking to purchase another portable diesel pump. We have 2 6-inch portable diesel pumps at the plant. They were purchased back in 2016. Initially, we purchased them we had 1 at the plant and 1 here in the collection system. Well, over time and with our gained capability to move more water from plant area out to the compost area during high flow events to prevent violations and to kind of help us process the water and bring back water later. We've ended up with both those 6-inch pumps down at the plant. It's really real imperative that we move water quickly during high intensity rainfall events and rapid intense spikes in flow. It's really imperative that we.
Sewer line breaks too.
Oh, there's that piece of it as well. Yeah, there's other uses for these pumps, this pump as well. So the way we do business is we usually use two portable pumps. We pump from the EQ basins out to the compost area. We pump from the filter influent pump station out to the compost area, and we try to get it out there as quickly as we can to keep up with these really high flows. You all know what kind of rain events we've had the last couple of years, and if we stay on trend with that, we really got to be thinking about our needs and our future capabilities to continue to get water out there as much as we can. We could use more than one more pump, but we wanted to get another pump and have it have the sound enclosure over it for use in the collection system. The last couple of years, we've rented a pump in the collection system. Santa Ana #2 in some areas that got overrun with high flows as well. Having one that is quiet. We're down there on Santa Ana Road and we're next to residential areas. This pump would have the full capabilities that the other pumps have, but it would be much quieter. We had a need, if we didn't have a need for one in the collections, that we could use it down at the plant and have a third pump down at the plant, that would work. And we could move that around as needed, depending on what's going on in the district and what our flow situations are. This particular pump, actually look at rental costs. It has a pretty short payback. It has a payback period of about 5 years. So to me, it would be a good thing to do. Let's see, payback. And also if one of our pumps fails, we're hot and heavy into it, and we got 2 pumps running at the plant, one running in the collection system, or not one running in the collection system and one goes down at the plant, we can bring that down there, or we can reach out and try to get a rental at that point. But, getting a rental pump it has its own challenges. We need to rent it. We need to rent it ahead of time because by the time we need it during storm events, everybody needs a pump, right? So it just adds up, and it just makes sense to us at this particular point where we're at with rainfall events and flows and things that happen that we purchase another pump for the district's needs.
This is actually replacing a pump that is well beyond its useful life and actually needs significant repairs that would far exceed its value. So we've opted not to do any repairs to that particular pump and purchase a new one at this time.
Thank you for that, Allison. And that particular pump is actually, we're not able to run it due to air quality standards and the low tier rating.
Dr. Curtis.
Gosh, are these self-priming?
If they are. Which is much appreciated.
So
Director Martinson.
diesel engines, air
Diesel engines.
engines, do we have a problem with the air district or anything with adding a diesel to our plant?
No, these are fairly high tier rated diesel engines, so we shouldn't be having any trouble with the air.
Fuel itself, do you have a tank or something you drag around with it?
We have the diesel tanks on two of our trucks, so no matter where that pump is, we could fill it. And then we have our 2 big diesel tanks at the plant that we can our trucks with. And we have lots of diesel.
Truckload, how long could you run this thing, you think?
Probably a couple of days on a tank.
On one full tank, 24 hours,
4 hours? 4 hours, okay.
depending on the load also.
Right.
Obviously, if it's a 1/4% of the load, it's get more out of it.
Okay, good, thank you.
I think we had a motion from Director Curtis. Did you make a motion?
Sure.
Okay. We'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
Further questions? Allison, can I call roll, please?
Director Martinson.
Yes.
Director Curtis. Director Kentosh.
Yes.
Director Berg.
Yes.
Director Quillisi.
Yes.
Director Ulrich.
Yes.
And Chair Stone.
Yes. To
Activated sludge.
item 11, return activated sludge pump and motor replacement for 2025. That's 08.
Okay. Last year, the board approved us replacing one of our RAS pumps, which is 27 years old, and they were definitely due for a replacement. And our initial plan was to replace one a year. Well, we got into this year, and looking at the cost of the pump and looking at the fact that those pumps go up by about $1,000 a year just due to inflation, we thought we'd present to the board maybe just buying both the pumps now and having them installed. Um, it's pretty much a direct replacement. Fairbanks Morris pumps, the pump that we did receive and install is running very well as anticipated. And we would like to go ahead and just replace the other two pumps and the motors. I don't feel that we'll have to come back for any other costs as far as installation. The RAS pump that we installed, I mentioned last year that we might need a little help with the alignment. That's not an area of expertise. The motor to pump shaft alignment, that's a pretty critical thing when you're setting that up. That cost us $2,500 to have the alignment done. And since they had to have the motor loose and the pump loose to actually do an effective alignment and then tighten everything down as they got everything dialed in, we went ahead and just had them lower the pump in and install it. We were going to do that part, but since they were doing the alignment work and the scope of work, we just allowed them to go ahead and just install the pump and install the motor, do the alignment. Yeah. So this would be about $5,000, something we can easily take out of our equipment maintenance budget to actually do the install. But we were looking to go ahead and just get both those pumps this year to avoid any rising costs, since we were going to anticipate having to come back for the third pump next year anyhow. And just with the price of these pumps, we thought it was kind of prudent to go ahead and just order all of them.
We can't have them cut us a little break because they're going to be here to do both of them.
Oh, on that part,
$500.
that part we'll shoot for a break. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
They can sweeten that deal.
Yeah.
Approval.
Second. Got a question. Were these to replace the original pumps?
Yes.
So they're all, what, 30 years old?
They've been in operation for 27 years with a little bit of alternating, two always online, and then we rotate on a weekly basis to bring the one that's offline back into the rotation.
Just to let everybody know, the plant's getting old.
It is.
It is.
They've been, the old pumps, they've been rebuilt 2 or 3 times, to the point where you're getting internal, pump housing wear and volute wear and all that kind of stuff. So it's time. Pretty critical.
Rebore them and put bigger pistons in.
Yeah. We've done that a couple times, and yeah, we're beyond that now.
And then buying 3 pumps a year apart, a year or 2 apart, they're all going to be interchangeable?
They are. Yeah, we purchased one last year, so we're just looking, there's a total of 3. We're just looking to replace the other 2. And since the cost went up from last year to this year by $1,000, we thought, well, maybe it's prudent we just go ahead and buy the 2 pumps and get them installed.
All right. So we have a motion in a second, correct? Anything further? Allison, would you call the roll, please?
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to item 12, City of Ojai Pavement Rehabilitation Project. Authorized manhole adjustment budget number 2025-09. Who's going to take this one?
It is
Last year was the first year of a pretty aggressive paving schedule by the city of Ojai. They've done some money. They've increased their typical project areas. They've gone from what was kind of every other year to every year doing a paving project. And they're pretty big project areas. Luckily for us, their primary engineering resource right now is Phoenix Engineering. We've worked closely with them over the years as well. A lot of people in the county have. They have started including our manhole adjustments as part of their competitive bid, which helps us. I mean, we get a great price. And we did again this time, $1,350 per manhole lid. There's about 79 in the project. So it's their project. We're doing a budget estimate based on the number that are within the project area today, including their add alternate, to estimate a total cost. We'll be reimbursing the city for this work. Right-of-way owners, as of about a decade ago, are no longer responsible for adjusting the utility lids. So water meters, our sewer manhole structures, some Edison structures, et cetera, have to be adjusted by the utility owners now. This is that. So we're reimbursing them for that line item to adjust our manholes as part of their contract. It benefits us because it saves my time. We don't have to put a project together that goes out to bid. we don't have to have the stress of coordinating with whoever our low bidder is and their low bidder. They do all of the work. We receive the invoices. We also do some inspection. We provide the manhole lids still. So there's a lot of coordination with the city and their contractor and us, but much less so than if it was under a separate contract. So this is that. We'll be reimbursing them for the line item. We did get a good price, so.
Director Quillisi.
Thank you. I thought I heard you say $250 per manhole.
1,350.
1,350.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
And we've had to pay as much as double for that. It depends on a lot of things. What the project is, are there a bunch in a row that they can knock them out? Or are they scattered all over the city? The city's projects are pretty scattered. So we don't usually get quite as effective pricing, but that is a good price. From what I've seen over the last 8 years.
Like a no-brainer.
Make a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve item 12A.
No second.
Director Curtis, do you have something else that you want to?
Are there any clean outs
Yes.
need to be replaced where you get the camera through?
Well, you can't put in a camera through a clean out because it's so, the camera is this long. Regular clean outs is about 6 inches.
You said, do we need to stack any manholes before they go in? None that we've identified.
No, none.
Oh, and we did in 1957, 1970s, rehab of the city. To save money, they put clean outs in when they should have put manholes.
We know, Jack.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Allison, would you call the roll, please?
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Director Byrd, Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes. Item 13, reclassification of vacant senior construction inspector to environmental compliance inspector with position description and salary recommendation.
So this identical agenda item was brought to the Personnel Committee on July 22nd. Staff approached CPS HR Consulting to engage them for a side classification and compensation study after our other one was concluded, when we had the unexpected resignation of our senior construction inspector. Part of the long-term vision was always to reclassify that position to be a little bit more industry specific and a little bit more industry normal, if you will. And that is called an environmental inspector at a lot of agencies because that directly corresponds with a CWEA certification of an environmental compliance inspector. And so we used this opportunity while it was vacant to reclassify it. The position description is attached that CPS HR consultants came up with. It is very similar to that of other agencies. A lot of the roles, responsibilities, knowledge, skills, and abilities are dictated by sort of the testing criteria for that environmental compliance inspector through CWEA. Here, that person doing very similar things that our previous construction inspector did, with the exception of project construction inspection. That will be done either by Liz or that will be contracted out as part of our project criteria when we go out to bid. They'll be doing some individual like homeowner construction inspection, checking the manner of connection, et cetera, to make sure that it meets district standard, but nothing the magnitude of having to have significant construction knowledge. They will not be backing up the collection system because they are not expected to have that diverse skill set, knowledge, nor certification to do that. They'll be focused more on our regulatory areas as it pertains to district code or regulation requirements. So that would be fats, oils, and grease, commercial inspections, our PSL program, commercial inspections, so our fixture unit counts, those sorts of things, that we are looking to sort of grow those areas of our of our program and make sure that we are doing those on a very set schedule. That there's a little more outreach that goes along with that as far as, engaging with the community to hopefully prevent some of the things that we encounter upon inspection. And so that will be more of a focus area for this specific person. And they'll have already been sort of pre-screened, if you will, to have that ability to do that. The job description is written to the effect for us specifically that they'll likely have done this exact work at another agency. So they should be able to come here and hit the ground running. Salary is relatively similar to the previous position. No enormous monetary impact to our budget at all by this reclassification. What it will do is it should make it quite a bit easier to recruit for, because this position in its like kind exists other places. And so we aren't looking for sort of a mixed skill set that is a unicorn, if you will, of somebody who has acquired those skills at a very specific agency and may have this and may have that. It's kind of a minimum standard of knowledge, skills, and abilities that someone has to have in order to be an environmental compliance inspector and certified as such.
So this position here, I know they won't move over to be any boots on the ground for the collection people, but this will relieve some of the duties that they're having to cover for now.
Yes, Israel is 100% covering Travis's previous position. So that in its entirety will shift back over to this position. So nothing from the previous construction inspector will be left with collection system as part of this reclassification. Like I said, the only existing staff impact that will happen is as it is really more appropriate that Liz and her department handle our more robust construction project inspection. So they won't be assisting in that in any way unless it's something that's very basic.
Thank you. Director Curtis.
Also, have we had anybody apply that could meet the requirements?
For this one, we have not gone out for recruitment for this particular position. So this will be added to this will be 5 vacancies with this one here. So we have not gone out for recruitment for this one because until the job description is approved and the salary schedule is approved for this reclassification, we can't go out for recruitment. We won't go out for this recruitment or continue with any of the other ones until after November. And that's at the direction of the Personnel Committee.
Why is that? What is the Personnel Committee waiting on the election for?
We waited to see what was going to happen because we had a potential for the board to change in November.
So it seems to me this district can operate quite well without a board, but it can't operate without employees. So why are we waiting? I don't follow the logic at all.
That was kind of where we decided to be. We were having trouble with recruitments on the other side, with the earlier recruitments.
Is it going to get better?
We would hope so, with the hiring of a new general manager and stabilization in the board.
Well, we're not looking, we're not going to be hiring, so it isn't going to get any better until you actually put out feelers as to hire somebody. So I would ask that the Personnel Committee reconsider that. Like, we're just fooling ourselves. And Nana's already said he's going to leave in the spring sometime. And so, another thing the Personnel Committee should be doing is finding a replacement for him, someone that'll be in place a month before he leaves so that all those computer systems are well understood by the new guy. Again, that's another thing. I think we should be starting today looking for somebody. What month are you leaving? Or can you answer? I don't need to know. Sometime in the spring is what you said. So.
We'll have an internal conversation about sort of what his plans are. And then we'll come to the board with a recommendation as far as if we are asking to essentially fill behind him sooner rather than later. There are some pros and cons to that the board can consider. as far as until somebody's actually gone, they're not gone, which is why we don't generally fill two people at the same time. But that is definitely for critical positions here. It's something that they can consider doing. But we will present a formal sort of transition plan because we know in advance. And obviously that's a very, very critical position here. So there'll be more information to come on that.
Okay, well, I've made my,
I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts along what Lowell's talking about. I'm on the personnel committee, and the last couple of weeks I've been cogitating about our difficulties. And I think that even though it may be premature to meet before November, I think the personnel, I would encourage us to meet so that we can discuss and figure out what the heck we're gonna do. So I like to encourage us to meet, even though we don't have a solution yet. Talk about what the heck we're gonna do. Just a thought.
So is that the direction to?
Yeah, let's set
personnel
something up.
I'll give you a couple of topics to add to the agenda.
I'll email you.
I'm gonna add one at the end of the meeting too, when you set that up. Can I ask another question? Sure. About this? Yes, I'm all in favor of this recommendation. The part of it was approve the recommended salary grade 115, 17, 19, 21. Is that in keeping with what the consultants said to set it at 5 to 10% below the current salary range midpoint? Does that match what they suggested?
Yeah, so that coincides with our previous recommendation. The exact same person did it, and they used the exact same benchmark salary timeframe and everything. So all of our salaries were evaluated at the end of our classification compensation study was from June of 2023 is the benchmark they used because everybody had already adopted their COLAs for that year and everything. This was the same. So while there was new data available, we chose to make it like for like so that nobody was being evaluated, at a different point in time. So presumably the next time we do the study, everybody should be the same in the market with the exception of a few that
When we do this study, we'll be back in
we generally do one every 5 years.
5 years. Or if I'm not against it then too. Okay, good, thank you.
I have a question about the environmental compliance inspector. Do we have any kind of entry-level position that would lead into that? Or is this the one and only position that does this?
Well, I mean, I guess theoretically, an environmental compliance inspector one is an entry level position for this. And as long as they meet the minimum qualifications for our actual job description, as far as years of related experience and the required certification, that would be entry level. And some of those certifications, the criteria to actually get that level 1 certification is quite minimal. So somebody could be fairly unfamiliar with the industry and be able to get that certification and have minimal experience and could easily apply.
I'm encouraged, thank you.
Further.
Now, move approval of this item.
Second?
Motion is second. Alton, call the roll, please.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
Chair Stone.
Yes. On to item 14, cost of living salary adjustment, solution number 2024-15.
This item was also taken to the July 22nd Personnel Committee for preview based on staff's recommendation. This is an annual evaluation of the cost of living. CPI June over June is what we standardly use. This year it's 3.2%. Staff is recommending that the board approve the 3.2% cost of living salary adjustment to our salary grid, which has been standard practice to match CPI. The CPI chart that we use in the region is attached here. So this follows suit with the exact same data point at the exact same point in time as we evaluate every year. The only difference in this particular cost of living recommendation is part of the discussion item at the personnel committee is that cost of living salary adjustments apply to the salary grid. They are not person specific. And we do have some employees that are being compensated beyond our salary grid as a result of the compensation study showed that they actually exceed maximum market. The recommendation of the personnel committee was to not only apply the cost of living salary adjustment to the salary grid, but to also apply the cost of living salary adjustment directly to the salaries of those particular people that are off the salary grid.
So I have a question. In the write-up, there's a discussion about those individuals that are off the grid high, I guess is the way to describe it. Can you give me a number of people that involves?
It's 3.
It's 3.
And the off the salary grid currently ranges from 5 to 8 something percent. So they'll be somewhere in the range of 8 to 13% off the salary grid after the cost of living adjustment.
Relatively high to the others. So with that knowledge and the fact we spent $40,000 on this study and we decided to ignore it, can we, one of the options they gave you was give this as a lump sum to those persons.
That's correct.
And the other was to just give it the same as everybody else, which I think is what committee recommended. So did you consider giving those that are over something less than 3%, not 0, but something less than 3%, with the idea that eventually over time, when you do that several times in a row, you get them back in line? Did you consider something like that?
And we did. Director Posey?
Yeah, I thought we looked at either adjusting the whole grid, including the people that were off the grid, or giving 3.2%. The people that were off the grid, not adjusting their salaries. Get a bonus, a 1-year bonus.
Correct. So the consultant's recommendation in these particular situations, as to not create disproportionality in your salary grid amongst the people that are placed in the salary grid, is to do the 3.2% or whatever number it is that you so choose. It could, I mean, there are budgetary constrictions with some districts where 3.2% is not possible. As a one-time lump sum payable per pay period for the 1-year period until such time that you reevaluated the next time, and presumably they're closer to the salary grid the next time.
Why would that happen? Why would they get closer next time?
Because it doesn't adjust the salary grid. They stay where they are in the salary grid, but they get a one-time lump sum that does not affect their hourly rate. And so grid closer to them. You see what I'm saying? Move it right, but they don't move right with it. Because their hourly rate is not affected, they're getting essentially a bonus proportional to an annual 3.2%.
I'd have to look at the math of that. One thing, in my experience with when people were off the grid like this, for whatever reason, sometimes it was they hired them in at some ridiculously high price, or sometimes it was demotions. People were getting demoted, and that put them. And so they would hold their salaries flat, such time as it caught up. And I never really liked that idea of flat, and I don't think I would like that this time either. But I do like the idea of giving them less than the 3.2%, just with the idea that over time they'll catch up but still get a raise every year. And so, again, we spent $40,000 on this study. I would have rather we not paid consultants, but use that money to actually give raises. But we did what we did. And now, like I say, it looks to me like we're ignoring the results of the study. And so, like I say, I would prefer that instead of 3.2, those people that are above the grid get 2 or 2.5, and that we do that until they get back on what would be the grid, which is a little bit different way of doing it than what you're suggesting. But I don't like the idea of a one-time bonus, because then it becomes next time you get another one and another one. It never ends. And so I think there needs to be a mechanism where you actually bring them back in line. And so that you guys can discuss, do what you want, but I could make that a motion, but I'm not sure I'd get a second.
Just wanted to tell Lowell my line of thinking, and that is we're having a heck of a time finding people to work for us. It's hard to get people to move to the Ohio Valley, and rob from other agencies. We're not in a very strong position. If since we're not in a strong position, we're not really, it's not really in our interest to be perceived as that company that wants to reduce people's salaries. I think we need to go the other way.
Remind you, I didn't say reduce the salaries. I said, don't increase them as a rapid rate as we're proposing. I'm not suggesting we reduce salaries. So, and in general, I understand what you're saying, but if somebody's going to leave because of a 1% difference in their salary bump, then, you know, good luck. It's kind of my view of it. But again, why did we do the salary study if we're not going to honor what it said?
It has useful information. We can use the IR.
Well, $40,000 to do that. We could have given everybody a $2,000 a year raise for that. You know, and if we're just going to do these studies and put them on a shelf, just like I thought would happen, why do it? You know, and if we really think this small district can afford to pay above, it's even above average, it's above the high for anybody else, you know, then I just don't think we're looking out for our ratepayers' interest very well. So,
I have 2 points I'd make.
huh?
I have 2 points I'd make to this. My first point is 3.2 or whatever. It costs, everybody has the same cost of living. Can't cut these people down 1.5% because they're above the scale. Costs them the same to live as everybody else. I don't think that's the right thing. Second, I think that the study that we did will have some useful information. It will be used. We need to give some stuff.
Okay, I can hear what you're saying. Here's a thought that I have that I know we'll never get a second, but cost of living. Let's just say that we have someone on staff that's making $1 million a year. Let's just say. So should we give them a 3.2% raise? And the point of that I'm trying to make is that, you know, there's kind of this thing used to be called discretionary and non-discretionary spending. To me, cost of living is non-discretionary. You have to pay your car insurance, you have to buy your milk, you have to pay your tuition or your house payment, whatever it is. And for somebody that's making $1 million, those non-discretionary things might equal $200,000 or $300,000 a year, let's just say. And everything else is what I would call discretionary. I don't see any reason to apply the cost of living increase to those big numbers above what I would consider. Now, I have no idea whether these people that are the three are, you know, making $4,000 a year or $200,000. I have no idea who they are. I don't want to know, but the point is, cost of living doesn't necessarily have to apply to everybody. We apply it to everybody, but it doesn't need to be. And so, you know, again, if we're paying above industry standard, and we're talking, how many counties we look at? 8 different agencies in 2 counties? I mean, you know, I'm clearly not going to get a second on this. I'm not going to bring it up as a motion. So I will drop my discussion because I'm not going anywhere with it anyway. But I don't like the idea of, you know, again, we're just a small little district. Why are we paying above anybody else for anybody? I don't, and I'm sure they're doing a good job. That's why I'm not interested in, you know, no raise. I'm not interested in cutting salaries. All I'm saying is let's increase those at a lesser rate than the rest until such time they're back on the grid. And the other question I would have, which is a separate issue maybe, is does this 3.2% increase push other people off the grid?
Shifts the entire grid.
Shifts the entire grid.
It applies to the grid itself, not the people.
Okay, so here's the question I'm really asking. We established that we have a group of people that are paid more than industry average. And so
Industry.
the question not is whether our grid goes up, is does our grid then exceed the industry average in other job categories or for other people if we give this 3.2?
So presumably, your 3.2 is the appropriate shift so that you don't actually become under market, your max. Presumably, everybody is using correct CPI at a specific time. So if everybody grants CPI and shifts it this way, it's what makes you stay relevant in the market specific to cost of living.
Okay.
We're not moving the opposite direction.
I think that's likely. We don't know the answer, but I think it's likely that there's not a big shift for another group of people. Anyway, like I say, I'm happy with giving a raise. I'm not objecting to the 3.2. I just think for those that are above the range, it should be something less than that.
Right, thank you. Entertain a motion in a second.
Sure. I must just remember the last personnel committee. I thought what we had decided to recommend to the board was one time 3.2% those that were off the grid, such that they would return to the grid more quickly, but they wouldn't lose anything this year.
I remember this very clearly. Bill and I were on one side of it and you were on the other side.
Ah, okay, so I was outvoted. Thank you. All right.
Everyone have.
I can understand now what you're saying.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Remember.
So I think I'm understanding what you're saying now. The whole grid moves by the 3.2.
Right.
And that I don't have a problem with. It's just that certain individuals are off the grid high. And so what I would suggest is even though 3.2 moves the grid, there's certain individuals that wouldn't get the full 3.2. Get something less than that. And that's not acceptable to the rest of the members of the board, I can tell. So.
Dr. Curtis.
I make a motion to approve the salary adjustment resolution number 2415 report.
So it would be specifically, you'd be making a motion for A and B, because A includes something beyond just the resolution. If that's
Is that what you're doing as well? You're offering 14A and B?
So now I'm confused.
Are you making a motion for 14A and B?
You already made that one?
I said, are you making that motion? Because you mentioned the resolution, which is one of those two items. Are you proposing both of them?
I'm making the motion for the 3.2%. And A and B.
A and B, okay.
So I'm now confused by the recommendations language. It says approve a 3.2 cost of living adjustment of salary ranges for all district positions. That's one thing, including specific staff who are not compensated within the salary grade. So what you're saying is 3.2% for the grid and then 3.2% for these three people on top of that. So you're separating three people out of the group and providing them something different than the rest. So, okay. So the grid is moving and we're singling out three people and giving them a.
So the grid is moving because everybody else is off grid.
That
And
makes
then
sense.
we're also moving this way, further away from.
Their salaries are going up by 3.2%, even though they're off the grid.
Correct.
So we've separated them out separately. Okay. All right. I understand.
What was second on Jack's
I
motion?
don't think we have a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion in a second. Any discussion by the public?
On the screen?
Public gets to discuss.
Okay, not seeing any hands up, so let's go ahead and call for the question.
I'm taking roll Roll call.
No.
No, you know. Director Curtis,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Director Berg,
No on this one. for me.
Director Quilisi, Director Ulrich,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes.
Is that 4-3?
That's why we have an odd number of board members.
That's why we have an odd number. That's right. And some are more odd than others.
Did it pass 4-3?
Yeah.
That's unusual.
I could have said no for a different reason.
Yeah, there you go.
Could have said yes for.
All right, let's move on to item 15, approve and authorize increasing employees cafeteria health insurance plan for employee effective December 1st, 2024 to cover the increased premium January 1st, 2025. Approve resolution 2024-16. Out.
So this went to the August 6th Personnel Committee for review. This is an annual review that we do when Cal releases the health insurance premiums for the following calendar year. The goal of the district has always been to provide a no out-of-pocket health insurance program for a family level. Over the years, as the health insurance premiums have increased, we sort of changed our philosophy to cover a family level HMO because it was more affordable for the district to do that versus offering a family level PPO. Ironically, that's no longer the case as of this year. They're very, very similar in premiums, with the exception of the PPO plans have sort of changed structures a little bit. CalPERS actually hires an administrator for their own CalPERS PPO plans. And so those ones seem to change the most from year to year. Nonetheless, staff's recommendation is to proceed with the same methodology and try to increase the cafeteria plan to 100% cover the cost of an HMO for a family. The result of that is changing the recommendation to change the current cafeteria plan of $22.94 to $2,400. All other terms of our cafeteria plan will remain the same, including the $600 max cash back. As this was discussed sort of in detail with the personnel committee, that is naturally phasing itself out as cost of insurance is increasing. If the cafeteria plan increases to $2,400 next year, essentially for the majority of our employees, cash back will be zero. So we will just be covering their premiums. And as people have retired from the district, are single or no longer have families that we cover, that has naturally phased out as well, some of the larger cashback amounts. So we didn't recommend any drastic changes to that particular provision because it's no longer a huge monetary factor based on our current.
So
Rick Martinson.
is there, I was hoping to see a table that showed what the premiums actually are that are being offered by the state. So can you just tell me what the premium for that family level HMO is actually?
It's within dollars of 2,400.
Yeah, no,
I think it's $23.94 this year.
It's $23.94. What was it last year? Do you know that?
$21.96, I think.
$21.90. Okay, thank you. I was curious what that was. Thank you. Okay. Okay. There's $650 a month. I still have a four. If I don't, tell me. The state has a cash option for their employees, including union, and that's their number is $140 a month. Remember when this first came up several years ago, I fussed about the idea of holding that flat, thinking that it would eventually, in effect, go away, which it now apparently has. So is there any, can you give me a number? I mean, how much money we spend a month on still spending for that? You know what it was
Well,
last
it's
year?
employee pool specific, so it, like I said, it could change at any point in time depending on what someone enrolls in and whether they drop dependents or get a divorce or something. So I mean, it's a moving target. So to budget for that and say, right now we only have X amount of people, et cetera. We always budget for the maximum cafeteria amount because that's what they're entitled to should they make alternate decisions. I would say probably right offhand, I would say probably less than a third of our employees get any form of cash back or will get any form of cash back in calendar year 20. Yeah, it's very small. Like I said, it has phased out significantly with sort of our recent retirements, change in sort of family dynamics, et cetera. It's a very small number now.
Do you know what it was? Chance?
I
didn't
can,
look
I can get those numbers for you.
I'm not that worried about it. Okay, well, I guess what I would like to see happen next year is that we take that 650 and put it in line with the state cashback flex elect. So I think that will get us in line with the state and it will have no practical effect on our employees next year. Because next year the cost of insurance is going to go up again. So if we hold it flat, then not many people will get it. And if we set it to 140, not many people will get it. Anyway, but that's just a thought for next year, which I may or may not be here. So.
Maybe asking the question in a little bit different way. Go offhand, are there any employees right now that are getting, excuse me, more than 140 back with them?
Yes.
Large number?
No. A very small number.
All the numbers are small.
You're talking about 20.
No, I mean, like, less than on one hand of people. Probably just a few. Three, if I have right offhand. Like I said, it's going to swing significantly next year. Essentially, those who are even getting sort of like offhand, like $150, like that's going to become nominal. Like I said, even the people that are getting it's an ever shrinking number when it goes up. And so essentially, unless you're single, it's going to be 0 to a very nominal number.
But is anybody getting the full 640? Someone?
Said less than 5, I would guess right offhand 3.
Are getting the full 650 or whatever it was. Okay. Hmm.
Second, we have anybody in the public who wants to speak on this? I can't tell if it's a hand up or just a.
Okay. Can I ask one other question? Allison, of those 3 that are getting their full 650 a month, do you think they will get 650 a month under this year's schedule? Did the personnel committee examine that question at the time, or was it any concern? Probably. We did this.
Had that exact number given to us.
We discussed the 650, decided to let it do.
My feeling was it's not a big number as far as the district is concerned, but it's a big number as far as those employees.
Yeah, it's 8,000 a year. So, somebody's getting, in my view, getting a great advantage over the other employees just by way of, maybe they don't have a family, maybe they're single. And I don't think that's right. So I know when this first came up years ago, when I first started with the board, Jeff told me, well, the reason we're doing this is because of union concern. That I've researched to the point to know that's not true because the state doesn't do that. At least not to that level. In the compensation study that we did any other district of the 8 that we evaluated give this
Yes,
several, the same level? Really? Okay.
or higher.
Or higher? Wow.
Because, I mean, just what, it is a huge consideration in recruitment. People that are switching from one agency to the other. It is one of the top questions that they ask is about the structure of our cafeteria plan and if it has a cashback feature. It does have a huge monetary consideration for this.
Well, I can see why it would be for a single person. I mean, it's a 8,000 year bonus for being unmarried and no family. So
All right, we have a motion in a second. Allison, would you call the roll, please?
Director Martinson,
yes.
Director Curtis,
Yes.
Ken Tosh,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Director Phillipsy,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
Yes.
I want to ask council. If we had thought to do anything about the cashback, even part of this, that have been legal, or would that require separate decision because it's not on the agenda?
I think we'd have to address that separately.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 16, planning discussion for replacement of combination truck gap back.
Okay, I'll lead in on this one. This is, as it says, planning discussion, our gap backs, was in 2014. His life expectancy was 8 years. Currently has 6,000 engine hours, which is equivalent to 300,000 miles. Looking to actually, it's that piece of equipment. It's a big dollar item. Something we talk about moving forward as to how we might finance that particular need. The big piece of this is California Air Resources Board is going to get vehicles to zero emissions. Are doing that in 2025. We get an order in on this particular placement for this vehicle. We stick with diesel for 10 years. So I'll let Allison talk about the financial part of it, and then Israel's here with his expertise, having evaluated three different units, the big players, GapVax, which is the vehicle that we use, Vactor and Vacon. So I'll let him talk in detail about that. He's been very, very familiar with the equipment, what it does, what the improvements are, what are some of the benefits and beneficial stuff with.
I'll go over the budgetary sort of impact, and then I'm sure that people have questions for Israel as far as the demos that they did and why the recommendation for the gap backs and what options were available and not available, et cetera, et cetera. So staff is recommending that or will be recommending at a subsequent meeting on the direction of the board to place an order with a future delivery date, specifically with gap backs for budgetary reasons. There is not currently enough money in the reserves to cover this particular purchase from the appropriate reserves. So the reserves that would be impacted by this would be a portion of it would be from the vehicle reserve. And then some of it would be from the equipment reserve. So the chassis itself would come from the vehicle reserve, and then any subsequent equipment that goes on it would be from the equipment reserve. And that would be the appropriate way to sort of leverage both without essentially not having enough money in either. The reason for that is that the lead time on it is quite long. I believe it's like 18 months. And so that will allow the board to essentially have numerous opportunities to allocate money towards this purpose that they've committed to. So that would be when we do the 23-24 budget reconciliation and we recommendations for where the overage amount will go to, what reserves will go back into. That's an opportunity for the board to decide that they want to essentially take that to contributing towards this particular purchase. It also allows the board to pre-budget a reserve contribution in next year's budget, as we do for the treatment and collection system reserves for projects. This would allow the opportunity to do that as well. This unfortunately was something that was inevitably going to happen, and it was going to be a very large purchase. We did not prepare for this purchase. Since I've been here in the last 5 years, we've contributed nothing, knowing that we needed to essentially purchase this vehicle. And so the reserves that are being leveraged are based on balances that have existed and not risen at all since I've been here. And so there needs to be definitely some planning in order to replace this vehicle that has exceeded its maximum life and is essential to operations. And like I said, placing an order versus taking immediate delivery will allow us to sort of plan for that over the course of the next, 12 or so months.
Can you give me a ballpark on how much this is gonna cost us, this truck?
It's like $800,000.
Martin?
In the write-up, you described the reason this is being triggered as the truck. It said it overheated at some time. What does that mean?
Well, this has been an internal discussion for a while as far as, the reliability of the gap backs when it's needed as far as very intense operational things. Most recently, we gave the example of when we were get to clean out the oxidation ditches. It overheated significantly and sort of took a step back after doing that one ditch and decided to hire out the room. Is because essentially if we're down, I mean, that's a huge cost for us and a huge impediment to us being able to continue on our regular cleaning schedule, which is also a regulatory thing. And so, I mean, we're sort of nursing it along, if you will, by picking and choosing how we utilize it based on its, its age and condition. I think we've had some maintenance, issues with it of late, and those are very costly too. And once you sort of open that Pandora's box, it's like a really old car. You're always doing something on it. Like I said, part of the timing of this has to do with the fact that we are not necessarily super interested in having to try to find something that meets our needs, but also meets the new emission standards. And so we're sort of trying to curb that time frame where someone's going to tell us what we have to buy, and then we're going to have to find it in the market at an extreme cost, along with everybody else looking to purchase that same item.
Yeah, if I can interject just a little bit, if they drive us to CNG, have to put in a CNG fuel station, and we might have to even open it up to public use as part of that process. Getting this for us to rely on this on a diesel unit, if we get it ordered, is a big deal. There's a life on this particular piece of equipment because there's a regulatory requirement reference this piece of equipment. If we have emergency operations and we need to respond, and we have an old unit out there that breaks down or heats or whatever the case may be, we have to be real proactive and kind of staying ahead of that curve and reducing our risk. In my opinion, we can't have sanitary sewer overspills. We can't have flow response. We can't have equipment that doesn't work. And so that's how I look at it from a regulatory standpoint. And so I don't look at it as subjectively as some people do. I think there needs to kind of be a hard line in the sand when you have something with, equivalent of 300,000 miles on it. And it's a very, very good and valuable necessary piece of equipment.
So engines, I'm assuming we're talking about the main engine on the thing, which is what, a 455 horse diesel or something like that?
370.
Huh?
370.
370, seems small. So engines overheat for lots of different reasons. Why did this one overheat?
Well, this wasn't the engine in particular. It was the actual blower unit that creates the suction. And we were taxing that unit pretty hard just due to how that unit's made. The newer unit that's similar to what we have has a more robust blower system, a bigger blower, and it's not going to have that problem just by design. So it was the actual blower that was overheating. So it's not just the main engine component. There's a lot of other components on that rig that,
When they quote this, do they not, is the blower not quoted also for this thing? The new
it's part of it. I'll let Israel talk to them.
Why don't we just get a new blower rather than buying a whole new truck?
So,
And also on the engine, the main engine, why don't we just rebuild the main engine rather than buying a whole new truck?
so the problem we're gonna be having is, it's gonna be through the California Air Resource Board. Eventually, we're gonna have to make a decision either now or later, whether we wanna go to CNG, or eventually, by 2027, we're not gonna be able to buy nothing. It's gonna have to be electric. 2035, everything on the road will be electric. In order to go to CNG, it's gonna cost us at least $1 million to put a fueling station at our treatment plant. That's gonna have to be open to the public. So starting in 2024, 50% of our fleet, that's diesel, that weighs over 14,000 pounds, has to be either a clean fleet, either a ZEB, zero emissions, CNG percent. So by moving forward and buying a GAVAX, getting a letter of intent to purchase, if we get a letter of intent to purchase, we wouldn't receive the unit till 2026. And that will take us all the way to 2035, which hopefully within 10 years that we'll be able to decide which route we're going to go, or maybe other laws will pass where they extend it another 10 years. My experience, I don't think we'll be able to go to zero emissions by 2035 on all diesel trucks. So
you're going back to the narrative. When I'm asking you questions outside of the write-up, if we have a diesel engine now and we rebuild that diesel engine, does it still comply?
Not comply.
It won't comply with the new.
They go by the year of the motor.
So if you had a 2014 that you rebuilt, that won't comply. And what if you put a new motor in that's a 2024 motor, a brand new diesel?
good, it's just gonna cost you quite a bit. And by the time you build all the repairs, so it's not just the motor, you do the electrical. Then once, it's kind of like an old car, once you start putting money into it, yeah, this is good, but what about the electrical? What about the door jams? What about the wheels? Tires?
I know you can buy a rebuilt engine for about $20,000. So I'm having a hard time 20,000 versus 800,000. And if it's a blower that's the problem, it seems to me that a blower replacement would be considerably less than $800,000 also, and wouldn't be affected by the CARB rules.
It's not just the blower, it's also our tank. It's starting to decay. It's starting to go through, we sucked up so much nitrates on there that all that's starting to eat it up. With this new truck that we're getting a stainless steel tank. Gonna be,
And this one's steel that's on there now?
yeah, it's steel right now. It's starting to eat up the steel, all the nitrates that we vacuum.
Yeah, it's 10 years.
That maintains old cars with 200,000 miles on them and even older cars with less mileage on them.
It's 10 years old, and with the regulatory environment, we need to kind of find that line in the sand as far as what kind of risk we're willing to accept, you know.
The also thing is, it has 300,000 miles, equivalent to 300,000 miles. So those aren't freeway miles. They're all city miles going up and down the grade, going from 0 to 20.
Yeah, I know it's hard on a truck that heavy to be moving around in mountains for sure. And that wear and tear on the engine. So to answer some of my question, basically, we're saying that if we rebuild the engine, it will not meet CARB in 2025.
26, yeah.
Also,
Is
that true, or we're just saying that?
Well, unless you
repower
repower it with a higher tiered engine. But now we have a rebuilt engine. We have a tank that we need to replace. There's hydraulic components. There's electrical. I think we're just increasing the risk for a
here's
unit
the other
that's essential.
You said, we've got 6,000 hours on this thing, which works out to about 15 weeks a year we use it if it were, straight 40-hour weeks. And you said that a rental was $7,000?
$7,000 a week.
$7,000 a week. And if we need a rental, how quick could we get one?
Depends on if they're available. And yeah, it's not very quick.
They're not available. They're very rare to have one.
So
Wait for the rental if.
So how are the vac truck that we're using different than an oil field vac truck? We could get them anytime we wanted.
Ours has very specific cleaning abilities. Actually, clean lines, it runs the hoses down
Stuff.
different nozzles for different size lines.
Here's what I was getting at.
It's a pretty specialized rig.
If you could rent one, if you had an event, your truck would work, until you get a rental out to do the backup or whatever. This thing is a 10-year payout. And the truck isn't going to have a life of 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, we're going to have to buy a CNG truck anyway. So,
No,
or electric driven. I just, I just don't see the economics in doing this relative to a rental, to be honest. And I don't know, if the engine's running now, and that's not the big problem, it's a blower, and it's because you over suck something out, it sounds like.
Yeah, the blower was just a simple example of one of the problems we're having because of an aged unit.
Yeah.
It wasn't a specific problem that we're struggling with. It's something that we prepare
Yeah.
on.
Eventually,
The fact that the motor has so many hours on it, the fact that we have a rotting tank, the fact, that the life expectancy for these units industry-wide is 8 to 10 years, and, to keep the risk down, because we can't have sewer overflows. It's just zero tolerance.
the water pump's starting to go out on it, not on the engine, the actual water pump on the jetter. It's gonna need
A new one.
I think everything's 10
A new one in 2 years with the rental.
Jack, did you have a question?
2 years.
years.
Do you have a question?
This is the,
Wow, yeah.
the piece where it's on.
here for rent.
Well, I just wanted to bring up the fact that we bought the first Haker backhaul. We paid $269,000 for it. Today, we're looking at trucks at $780,000.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And to kind of get what you're getting at, what you're forgetting is that we're not just talking about the motor here. Motor's gonna run forever. But the back of the truck, the pumps, hydraulic systems and all that wear out. The inside of the tank gets beat up. How many times have you gone in and welded a new plate in where the stuff, where the material comes down, the rocks come down and hit the bottom of the thing? And it's in an atmosphere of sulfuric acid. And it just eats that truck up. That's what happened to it. That's why you have to change it every 2 years or every 10 years. You have to buy a new one. Plain and simple.
Jack, Director
You have
Pussy?
to grab the truck. And that truck has got to run because that's an emergency vehicle. If we have a stoppage somewhere in the system, that truck's got to be there and run.
Thank you.
To get it fixed,
Like
you got
this.
to take it to LA and then who knows how long it's going to take.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions from a little bit different point of view. The write-up says that an existing gap vax is available at this time.
Correct.
Now, we just approved buying 2 more pumps. The numbers are smaller, I'll grant you. But because of $1,000 increase from last year to this, which is about 2.5%. Do you think that the cost of a gap vax is going to go up only 2.5%? I personally doubt it. I question why we would not purchase one now. If we're looking at 12 to 18 months to get one, if we order it with an unknown number right now, none of us could know how many $7,000 a week rentals we might have to incur in that 12 to 18 months. If we can even find one, as has been said several times around the table already, this is not a piece of equipment that you can say, oh, well, we need it, but if it comes next week, that's okay too. Not that kind of a thing. When we need it, we need it. And there are funds, maybe not in the right reserve funds right now, purchase this thing. And I would suggest that we move funds around however we need to put the appropriate money in the vehicle replacement fund and the equipment replacement fund. And go buy that existing gap vax now, please. We have no idea what it might cost us over the next 12 to 18 months. How much of that money that we think we're saving by ordering now instead of buying now are we actually going to spend? It seems to me more prudent to move funds around and get something that we know we can get right now. I presume the price is about the same, $725 for the gap vax and slightly higher for the others. And is it an existing gap vax? I think staff report said there is an existing gap vax on the market that we can get at this price.
Not right now, but within 3 to 4 months, we'll be ready.
Within 3 to 4 months,
So they have a chassis and they're ready to.
rather than within
To build
12
it
to
up.
18 months.
Well, again, if we lock into the 12 to, if we get it within if we sign a letter of intent to buy, whatever the quote is today, that's what it's gonna cost us in 18 months. It's
We have
not,
downtime.
Yes, but how many $7,000 a week rentals are we going to incur
that is the risk,
in the meantime if this equipment breaks down?
is the risk.
I think it would be foolish, penny-wise and pound-wise foolish, to wait 12 to 18 months to get a replacement.
Director Martinson.
So today, when I saw this number, which choked me, I started looking around. There's a vac truck new available for $425,000 in Bakersfield. Although I don't know it has the right equipment, suction capabilities, all that. Probably it doesn't, but, and the used ones in general are running anywhere from 150 to 250,000. So the other things I didn't like about this deal is getting 40,000 for ours, which I suspect has a much higher value on the market. And the other little detail I didn't like is the delivery charge at $3 a mile, $10,000. That implies this thing's 3,333 and 1/3 miles away from us. And you're saying there's one available in 2 to 3 months. So I don't know why that number's in there, but it needs to go out.
So the trade-in, it's actually 50,000 that they're gonna give us for that truck,
Is what?
50 is in the quote.
50,000.
Oh, I know. And then you give you a 10% discount and then they charge you 10,000 for delivery. So, you know, all those trade-ins are funny numbers. But I'm willing to bet we could sell it on the market ourselves and get closer to 150,000 for
We
it.
can't sell in California no more. We would have to sell it out of state.
Great. People buy it out of state.
Where is the existing?
Pennsylvania.
I've listened to both
Oh, it is
sides.
in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Oh, that explains the 10,000.
Yes.
That I can believe.
It's being built in Pennsylvania.
That I can believe. Okay, that makes more sense.
Director Byrd.
Yes, I'm convinced that we shouldn't wait. I think we should move now, get a diesel and not go into that big CNG expense. So I'm with Director Quillisi on that.
Another question. If we place an order for this existing, not quite existing, gap vax machine, what's the cash flow? We don't have to put 725,000 up.
Well,
Right.
there's different options that if you wanted to go. You have the lease to own, which you wanted to say, for example, do it for 7 years, you would give $100K a year till you pay it off with interest. I believe the interest was,
On a slightly cheaper rig, it was 130,000 over 7 years in interest additional.
So about 20% per year interest. Doesn't sound like a prudent way to go to me.
Okay, this is a discussion item, so we don't have to necessarily direct any action tonight.
We don't have to.
I would recommend that we hear from every director so we know where we stand, the group as a board. Throw my 2 cents in. I'm kind of supporting and leaning towards Randy and Steve in that what really strikes me is that if we place an order by the end of December, then we have 10 years. I know what a headache APCD can be with the air pollution rules. And if that buys us 10 years, it's worth it.
Definitely.
Right there.
There's a lot of value in that.
And yeah, it'd be great to have a rebuilt truck, but I kind of leaning towards the long term is you're gonna be better off with a new truck anyway. I'm kind of leaning towards you two guys.
I still don't understand what the cash flow would be if we placed an order tonight.
Like what is required, like when the full
Right,
payment is
what
due?
sort of a down payment is required to hold that 3 or 4 month?
You wouldn't.
Just a
no down
PO?
payment, as long- When we receive the truck, that's when the money would be due.
Letter-
Upon delivery.
Oh, so we have 3 or 4 months to figure out where to put the funds.
As long as we tell them, as long as we put a letter of intent to buy.
Well, not 18, not if we're gonna get the truck in 3 or 4 months.
Staff can definitely make a recommendation or propose options as far as what funds are available and how that will impact those specific funds.
Want to pay credit card interest rates,
Sure.
buy something this size.
I would also recommend having legal review the requirements for some of the reserves have a legal minimum requirement because we have outstanding debt also. And so we have to evaluate because not all of those funds are available to actually move around. So legal can look into what the requirements, and I can check with our auditor also to make sure that we don't essentially reduce any of the reserves by moving them around and are no longer compliant.
How long would that take to figure out? By the next meeting?
Probably do that. I can give you definitely some idea of this one is completely restricted. There's nothing to be able to move. And which ones essentially are movable, because there are several that are movable, but it will deplete them and some of them have earmarked purchases as part of the existing budget. And so that's a larger conversation.
We also have money with CPM or whatever.
Well, those are all part of the reserve. So that total sum
Oh,
is
okay.
your cash. It's just in those particular buckets. And so while we have money, it's not quite literally available for whatever, if that makes sense, but.
Yeah, sounds good. I think we should go ahead and have staff bring that back to us. I just have a couple of questions. Don't necessarily like on the gap back so much. I'm kind of in agreement with some other board members here. I was kind of one that hung my foot out to hang with an old one the last time. And I think it bit us. I think we may have kept it maybe 2 years too long. And ended up having to spend more money to get the new one. My next question, I guess, is when is the water truck due up for replacement?
It's a 2016. So in our reality, the water truck has less components. So in our reality, I would run that till we actually need a water truck. If it makes it another 5, 7, 8 years, I wouldn't. That truck's really, really built well. And all it is a water pump. We need our gapbacks. Runs very, very well. So I wouldn't replace that within the next.
Have a diesel engine?
Yes, it does. But it's still good. We'll be grandfathered in, kind of a deal. Now, the only reason we wouldn't be grandfathered in with the gapbacks is because we actually got to replace the gapbacks. It's already at the
In the life.
end of its life. Another thing is the gapbacks we quoted, it's an upgraded gapbacks. So it has a bigger blower, bigger motor, bigger transmission, bigger brakes. It's just a more sturdier, heavy duty unit, which when we go do plant operations, it's going to be able to withstand the 8-hour, 7-hour days of work it's going to be getting. So it's an upgraded unit that we're getting.
The existing one is that?
Existing one that we have, it's the lower unit.
The 3 or 4 month delivery unit?
Yes.
The upgraded.
It's an upgraded version, correct. Well, again, going back to the water truck, I would just ride that one till it's in great condition. I wouldn't even, not even in the forecast, in my opinion. It's just well taken care of.
Okay, and here's another question. So how's our easement cleaning machine?
That's good too. That could get replaced.
I don't want, I would hate to see us get in a position where we've got 3 or 4 high dollar items that all are going sour on time. Basically replacing them.
That's still in great condition also, the easement machine. That gets very, that runs off like a Honda motor, so we could always replace the Honda motor. And the hydraulics are very simple to work on. So it's not a unit that's, I think a brand new unit costs about 120,000. Well, it's in, that easement unit's in great condition. It's nowhere near replacement.
Just as a response to sort of where you're potentially going with this, at some point, ideally, I think it would be good for the district to create a vehicle replacement policy, in which sort of helps you structure the budgeting for all of your vehicles and large equipment.
Into a reserve fund.
Correct. We have sort of an expected life that we've sort of allocated to them. But realistically, we don't really abide by that. And so we don't move towards replacing it, knowing that it's coming. And so it gets a little difficult because we have very old fleet in general at this point. And, you know, our funding sort of hasn't contributed towards any of the replacement, even for our regular vehicles, are quite old.
I was under the impression we were doing that.
We not,
In the Dave Burkhart days, I was thinking we had something set up. Money was set aside for
yeah.
vehicle usage and set aside.
The vehicle reserve, I think, was probably set up with that intention. But when we budget and we evaluate sort of how that impacts rates, I think it appears that maybe over time that's been backed away from in order to maintain rates, because those would normally be contributions to those reserves that impact your overall annual budget. And in an effort to sort of, that's the first thing that you cut when you don't want to raise rates by an amount, is what you contribute to your reserves. And I think the easiest sort of solution was to just keep some of our equipment longer in order to sort of save money. And especially, I think over time, as the priority was saving for that large TMDL project, that became less of a priority. So maybe reevaluating that going forward, now that that project is somewhat behind us.
Yeah, shame on us as a board. That was really slipped on that. Taken care of.
Using equipment longer than its expected lifetime based on advice from our expert staff, one thing. Not putting money into the reserves for replacement, a separate question. I think, along with the chair, I'd like to see that policy changed. I'd like to see us start contributing to those reserves more again. Maybe all that happens if FEMA ever sends us a nickel.
But one could hope.
When we bought the gap back, we had the money in the reserve to pay for it.
So I guess we've heard from everybody except Director Ulrich. What your thoughts on it?
I'm in concurrence with almost everybody on at least one point. My perspective, and this is some of it's horse trading, that $50,000 trade-in is light. I would get, it always is. So I would wait to get our new piece of equipment, and then I keep it as a backup. Sometimes there's break-in issues with new equipment that, you know, all of a sudden somebody's got to work on it and it's offline for a bit. Number two, that would also give us enough time to, since staff will have all this extra time from not having to replace motors and pumps and such, as, you know, we avoided, sidestep that issue, perhaps staff can determine who would be best at marketing this out of state, because you can't sell anything in California. So, but there's 49 other states. Well, I don't know about Alaska or Hawaii now that I think of it, but 47 states that are potential. There's some district that would need that doesn't have enough money to buy a new one and would use it as a stopgap, and we can make some, headway back into this large number. I'd still expect to see the Sourcewell discount, and I'm also a little bit in congruity with the notion of what exactly is that nice round $10,000 freight for? Is that getting put on a rail car or on a long bed and trucked out here?
They fly a driver out there and then he drives it back.
He drives it back. Okay, well, there's a lot of overhead with that versus it just being freighted. So I'd also ask that question of that, are there other means of getting it freighted? Maybe they might be able to shave another couple of $1,000 off of it. So anyway, I think that I agree with everything about, we should have a more organized approach to long-term capital replacement on equipment. And anything else? No, I think that.
Buy now or buy later.
Well, no, I mean, I'm on board with the sooner rather than later, because you never know what's 3 or 4 months out is reasonable. And if all it takes is a PO right now, I did notice that freight says prepay. So that would be something that would be discussed. And maybe in order to make the deal, the salesperson might want to shave, 20% off on that number, and then you don't have to, however they work it, okay? But you're basically saying it's going to arrive here with 3,000 miles on it.
Right.
If
you get it freight, it's gonna cost more because you have to get pilot cars, you have to get special permits. That GAVX is 13 feet high. So you're not gonna be going underneath.
When I was talking freight, I was talking rail. Rail can handle 13 feet. Okay, and it gets here pretty quick. And it only gets loaded on once. And it only gets offloaded once. There isn't any mileage. But just a thought. Anyway, for discussion, because some salesperson's going to be very happy to make this sale. So anyway, I think that covers it for me.
I like the direction you're going. I wanted to bring up something. I just pulled up the CARB regulations, and it says beginning January 1st, 24, fleet owners may only add zero emission vehicles to their California fleet. Are we fleet owner?
Yes.
So we're adding a diesel?
No, we can, 50% of our fleet has to be clean fleet.
Okay.
CNG.
We meet that?
Yes, because we have right now 4 vehicles. So if we were to replace our whole fleet, 2 of them would have to be clean fleet.
Okay. So you've looked into this a lot, though.
Yes.
It also says here that January 1st of 25,
Yes.
the engine model year has to be removed if the engine model year is 18 years or older. So by my account, that gives us to 2032 before we have to replace this particular engine by these CARB rules.
But if you take it there, you're gonna have to go get an electric combo truck. Aren't proven yet on the market. Everything that's usually the first out, we're gonna have a lot of bugs to work out.
Going to be so heavy, it's going to reduce your water capacity.
We're not gonna be able to get a big blower because of the electric. It's not able to power the blower.
Oh, now that's an interesting point that Ed brought up before. If that's an issue, then that.
Truck will weigh twice as much with all those batteries.
Yeah, and less water too.
Definitely. Right. They'll have to reduce the water capacity.
Yeah. Right now, we're getting 1,500 gallons. We're gonna go something to that, it'd probably be 800 gallons.
Okay, so
Smaller debris tank.
staff has a direction.
What's the direction specifically again, sir?
So
I've heard that we're going to bring this back at the next board meeting, if at all possible, with budget options for the purchase. And then a long-term consideration to bring to the board at some point, when feasible, would be a proposed sort of vehicle reserve policy that would include some policy.
Separate decision.
That would be parameters for guiding our long-term savings based on replacement at useful life. Right here.
That's it, exactly.
the other direction I heard was his idea of proposal that they wrote to us includes 40,000 or whatever it is, 50 for the used. You're suggesting
Don't keep it. Don't take that
we're
option.
keeping the truck,
Yeah.
leave that out.
Just at this point, just start doing some value engineering on the proposal and bring some of the numbers down and take that number out. Because the existing equipment is worth more to us, even in the short term, as a backup for a few months while we figure out who's going to take it off our hands. Okay, if that's possible. If not, we'll wind up having something brought back to the board.
We can definitely sort of try to get them to engineer that quote. We'll ask about different delivery options. We'll ask them to remove the trade-in off of the proposal. And then in the meantime, if staff time allows, we'll evaluate sort of how other folks in the general vicinity are getting rid of their large equipment they're replacing. If there's a source that's sort of their niche, if you will, for disposing of things out of state.
Tell Plumbers Depot to expect some action.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Direction. Okay, let's move on to item 17. OVSD board meeting schedule, District General Legal Counsel A to Z law attendance availability.
Okay, so I'll just segue into this, and then I think when Dennis joined us at the exit of Robert, we were in the middle of budget season, and so our meeting schedule this year was essentially all special meetings. Nothing was on regular schedule this year. So I think that there was a miss on what our regular schedule was. And once we went back to our regular fourth Monday of every month schedule, I think Dennis realized that there's a conflict in his attendance ability based on that. So I'm going to let him speak to that.
Yes. So first of all, I'm sorry to bring this before the board, but I do appreciate you considering it. So I have a prior commitment with another district, the Triunfo Water and Sanitation District, which also meets on the fourth Monday of each month. So I know
Engagement.
yeah, prior engagement. So I know, people's schedules are tight and we got 7 people and my ask was just to consider if there was another day that you guys, if you could accommodate that, that would enable me to attend your meetings more frequently.
Because you wouldn't even be available to Zoom in.
No, because it's like a 5 o'clock.
So are you the only counsel at A to Z?
So we have an associate, Misha, who's, not overly experienced, but she could also sub in and I could give her some supervision as
That
well.
would be a permanent sub in.
For pretty much.
I mean,
Director Berg.
can we take a polling of the director's availabilities? Because my only bad day would be Wednesday.
The only bad day would be Wednesday.
I have something else going on Wednesdays.
Well, to start the polling, I would prefer Tuesdays anyway.
Yeah, Tuesday for me would be good.
It'll be fourth Tuesday.
Same fourth Tuesday.
They're always the fourth Tuesday.
Oh, there's always,
Early enough. There's always more.
Idea. Is there always a fourth Tuesday?
there's always at least 4 of each.
Sounds like a song.
For February.
Even for February.
Okay with the
I've got a problem with 4th Tuesday.
You want the third Tuesday.
3rd Tuesday would be fine for me.
I have on another board.
Okay.
Or is on the third Tuesday.
It's gonna get interesting.
Why don't you do Monday, third Monday?
If it doesn't give staff enough time.
Well, the only issue is that our sort of standard practice is to present the prior month's financials at the preceding month. I would not always be able to accommodate that. So, because I can't control when other folks send out their statements and close their books for us to actually have our accountant come in and close ours. So I couldn't guarantee that because we barely make this deadline. So that's the only consideration. If that's fine, that some of the financials would be, 2 months behind almost, then
I may be the one here with the most conflicts, and if anybody hasn't been reading the paper or.
More on the way.
And more- exactly. I'm running unopposed for city clerk of Ojai.
Oh, wonderful.
Nice.
No, that means he's in lieu. He's just being shy.
Oh, I need to go down to the elections office.
Yeah.
Too late now.
Not in the city anyway.
That for me is second and fourth Tuesdays. I
Second.
feel the need to attend all those city council meetings.
Oh, they
First-
cancel half of them.
I
Now,
know they first and third Wednesdays, I'm chairing the Ojai Planning Commission. May not next year, but I'll still be a member, I think. So maybe said third Tuesday, somebody said was bad.
Have a,
Okay.
morning,
How about Thursdays? Does anybody have a problem with Thursdays?
Which Thursdays?
Fourth Thursday.
All my.
Yeah, the third
all
is
my-
fourth Thursday.
All my Thursdays are open right now.
She
If
would
we
like-
move
I'm
from
open
fourth
for-
Monday to fourth.
So I would just have to, I mean, if we get later in the week, because I very rarely take long vacations, but I do once a month, I generally take like Thursday through Sunday. So I would just throw that out there. I'd have to probably have like the GM substitute for me if it conflicted, just, so I'm just throwing that out there as, that would possibly be. an
Yeah.
issue.
Third Thursday is harder than fourth Monday in terms of getting financials done.
Third Thursday versus the third Monday.
Versus fourth Monday.
It's anything sooner is going to be harder, but yeah.
well, there's always Misha. We try.
Well,
Yeah,
Friday.
I don't know. I don't know that I'm. I hate to say this with Dennis here in the room, but I don't know that I'm willing to change our plans around for something that we've had for a long time.
I understand.
Maybe Triumphal needs to change their days.
A lot of controversy here on a day to month basis. We have specific controversies that require extra help, but on a monthly to monthly basis, we don't have a lot of controversy. So Misha could fill in or he could be. And then Dennis could just keep an eye on that.
and in the event there's some particular fraught issue, then you can make your apologies to Triumpho and come on over here. Because I know that they're, having worked with some of those folks, they're very reasonable and forgiving most of the time.
There's something between the lines there.
I see district council having two main jobs. One is to answer legal questions when we have them, or advise us of pending litigation. The other is constantly monitoring the entire meeting when appropriate, saying, stop, you can't say that or do that. Misha's not in the room listening or anything, but do you feel that she can do those things?
I think she could get up to speed. She's gonna have to educate herself a little bit, but I can help her with that, for sure.
That's what I think we need from you or from whoever sits in that chair.
And I think she has done that a few times in the past for Robert.
She sat in for Robert.
I think she's done a good job.
We'll find she's got a conflict.
That's just my thought. I can listen to the rest of the board and see what they have to say.
That's the solution, actually. Just leaving it where it is and I think A to Z, manage whatever needs to be managed.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just appreciate you guys considering.
Director Martin, did you have something?
No, I'm happy with whatever. I would even go for a Friday if that helps, but if it's
Oh,
whatever.
I can't do Friday.
Fridays are definitely out, I can tell you. Okay. but
Fridays.
I'm, like I say, I
Late in the.
actually prefer any night other than Monday, but Monday works for me. So if we want to keep it there, that's good by me.
I think we're gonna leave it there and difficulty. It's worked out.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, I think we'll go ahead.
Yeah, so next we have a closed session item, right? But before we go into closed session, staff received a anonymous letter regarding the closed session item. And by law, that's considered a public comment, and so we just need to make it part of the record. So I've asked Allison just to distribute a copy of it.
Okay.
Before we go,
Got it all.
sorry, before we go into closed, since these guys have to leave, Pittsburgh to here is 2,600 miles, 3,300. So find out what they're quoting.
Google Maps,
Yeah.
all interstates or what?
Huh?
Google Maps says that's the distance.
2610 by one way, 2473 by another by highway. That's almost $2,000 difference. If it's originating in Pittsburgh, which it may not be.
Suburb of Pittsburgh, Johnstown.
Oh, okay. See, there you go.
Well, this letter came from anonymous?
Even though it's anonymous, it's still supposed to be part of the public record. Just like if a speaker came here, by law, you can't actually require them to identify themselves if they don't wish to.
Serious allegations that are rumored to include.
Somebody who.
So with that, we should probably just go into closed session now.
Yes.
Government Code 54957, which will be discussions regarding public employee employment. Sure. We'll reconvene afterwards and report on the action taken.
Yeah, we'll do that at 8. So. I think at this point, maybe I'll have Allison and Bradshaw leave.
Sure.
So it takes any awkwardness away from. Yeah. Don't leave because we might have questions after.
Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back on the record. The board met in closed session. Director Curtis was required to leave for a medical reason. However, the rest of the board voted unanimously to proceed with the hiring Mr. Stroff. Board is going to reconvene a special meeting in the near future to go over his compensation package and employment agreement via open agenda item.
Thank you, Dennis. So what's the pleasure for a special meeting? You have to have 24 hours.
Tonight?
I'm available Thursday.
Yeah, I am too. This week.
That's the 29th.
For me,
Do you want it at 6 or do you want it earlier than 6? Since it's just that one item.
Earlier would help me. How about Thursday?
Yeah.
Earlier would help me if we.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
4 o'clock?
Anytime for me.
4 would be okay.
Or work for everybody?
4 o'clock on Thursday. Okay.
Oh, would that be here?
Probably not barely a thing.
okay, you better give me that thing back.
Oh, yeah.
Or
This one.
are you inviting or?
Yes. People have to sign.
I mean, it's the 9th.
60.
And if you have to put in the minutes, Jack left at 8:10.
Oh, thank you very much. I would like that.
You okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
His oxygen machine ran out and he didn't have an extra one, so
he was kind of starting to look a little, before I even left the room,
he had to go. He didn't have an extra machine. Said you guys maybe last too long.
That's his parting statement.
Yeah.
Okay. We have direction on that. Moved on to 19, 20, 21, 22. Anybody want to pull anything off of there? Seeing nothing. So any general manager comments?
I don't have anything.
I just have one thing, ditch number 2 was very effectively cleaned out of all its settled debris by Performance Pipeline. So we go. Perfect. TMDL project continues.
Good. Anything from board members?
I have something I want to just kind of reveal. I want to come clean. Told several of you that a year and a half ago, I received a diagnosis of Parkinson's. It's progressing slowly, but it's getting to the point where I can't hide it anymore. And I intended not to run for office, but it turns out I waited till the very last day to file, and no one else would file. So I thought, well, I should throw my hat in the ring just so that they have somebody there. But I'll be able to do this for another couple of years, maybe even the full 4 years. But if I'll leave it to you, I don't want to end up like Joe Biden. If you ever think that I'm not able to, if I become an embarrassment, please let me know. That's all. Looking forward to continuing working with you guys.
Okay. Thanks
For
for that.
many long years.
Appreciate it.
I had one question. Allison, on your summary of the financial report, there's a sentence in there that confused me. I think I know what you meant, but I just want to,
What page are you on?
that's 139 on your packet.
Okay.
Anyway, the sentence says FEMA-related expenses paid as of the date of this report are approximately 5.4 million. That's how much we've paid, right?
Correct, total.
Okay, that's how much we've paid out. Yeah. We think is, some portion is reimbursed. Okay.
Some portion of it, yes.
But we don't have any more current thinking as to when FEMA might actually act. on
It's
it.
it's an ongoing thing. I mean, to be quite honest with you, it uncertain times, it's a full-time job for somebody here. I would definitely recommend we rethink that. Should we ever have another disaster and consider hiring some sort of consultant to handle this, or what have you, because it's quite a thing. We can basically continuously answer the exact same questions in a different form. And FEMA has excessive turnover of staff because they take so long and they're all contracted for a term. And then we get a new person and we start all over. It's the most exhausting, arduous, ineffective process I've ever seen in my entire professional career, if I'm being perfectly honest. It will be this amazing miracle when the money actually comes in. I would say, to be honest with you, I don't see us any closer than we probably were 6 months ago, as far as looking like we're moving forward. It's just, like I said, it's the same question in a different form, always from a different person.
I spoke to someone at the council meeting who overheard me some reference to a FEMA claim, and they said it took a year, but they did get it.
It just took them a year.
I mean, a year, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, really, a year?
Most of that 5.4 million is from January, February, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Our auditor said, I think our auditor said that he's never seen anyone get it sooner of the agencies he's worked for, any sooner than 2 years.
Okay, well, part of, I said, what do you attribute that to? Wait for it. Go to your congressional representative.
We have.
Okay,
Um,
which one?
all,
Mr. Carbajal,
all of them, yeah. We have,
Seems to be more interested in Santa Barbara County than
we have all
down
of,
here. Okay.
Jeff started that when he was here, when we started working with them. And they email and stuff like that, and they get a nudge. And I think FEMA gets nudges, you can tell, because how they respond, it's actually kind of a little bit odd. You can tell when they get a nudge from somebody because someone from up here.
Remember
issues
your
these
name?
Very firm deadlines, but for something that's not complete. And so they'll say, we've been told that all of these projects have to be finalized with all of the RFIs complete by this date. And it's like, but you haven't even gotten your RFIs yet. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a very odd, like subjective sort of response you get. And you're like, well, okay, but we haven't even started that conversation yet. And no, it's just, so it's like, it's very painful, like to move forward because at any sort of pace. And we just got, 2 weeks ago, our, EMG, so our project manager person from FEMA, that would be our second one we've had. She left, so we're on our third one, I think. And that's like starting over in of itself because they all have different levels of experience with different types of disasters. And so they all have their own opinion on how something should be pushed through. They all have different relationships with Cal OES. They come with a different supervisor that has a different level of knowledge. So it's painful. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, eventually. I mean, I think what a lot of agencies do is they just start grabbing for the pennies. They get so exhausted and they end up leaving so much on the table, which we don't have an intention of doing. There are certain things that we will likely get less reimbursement than we hoped for just because of, you know, contract structure, wording. I mean, they nitpick everything. And so, you know, what are you going to do?
Okay, how about the US Senator?
I guess we could try. Yeah, we can try that too. Sure.
Well,
I mean,
got
we'll do it.
representatives, they're on the,
Absolutely. I mean, it's,
on the, taxpayer.
In Carvajal's defense, I waited 18 months to get a tax refund for my late brother. Called Carvajal's office, sent in a little email form, and in 2 weeks I had a check. After 18 months of waiting. Works occasion.
yeah, I mean,
It's really the reason.
so we'll see. We'll definitely report any progress if we have meet some major.
Because there's,
But right now, I mean, it's like a standstill.
government's also not paying interest on this stuff, and that means obviously sunk costs with no turn. And somewhere in there, we possibly could afford to do.
Well, I mean,
1%? I don't think so.
I mean, we have some of the way our requests for reimbursement are structured are in the form of small projects, which theoretically they can actually reimburse and then get the lesser documentation later, which they don't seem to be able to do that correctly either. So I'm not really sure. And they were the ones that encouraged us to separate a lot of our projects into small projects because they'd get pushed through faster. And now we wonder if that really helped us at all. If it didn't hurt us, it's just a larger volume of stuff.
Well, the companion question is, if they're moving faster, what is slower?
Fair enough, I guess. All relative. Yeah.
Reminds me of that kids movie where there's some character, they had to go into the DMV and there's a sloth there. And they're trying to fill out, you know that movie? That was hilarious.
Right. With that, we'll adjourn at 8:40.
All right. It's a new record, Bill. New record.